Hi, I'm Dave, owner of Future Past Vintage Collectibles, here with my daughter Rachel,
Hello.
and we're bringing you content not quite every week. So let's do some housekeeping real quick.
Yes, if you're new, welcome. We're Dave and Rachel. We're comic dealers, and we do claim sales every Monday and Friday at 5 and 5:30 p.m. over on Instagram, where we sell super high grade bronze and copper books as well as other books too.
Other stuff, we buy collections, so if you're in the market to sell your comic books, consider us. We're nice.
We're so nice.
You can contact us. We're in the description. You can email us, and we'll reach right back out to you.
Yes, we will.
So we're going to show some comic books, and we're going to talk about something in just a minute. We just went to Emerald City Comic Con, and Rachel bought a comic book.
I did.
So I'll let you talk about it. Tell the people.
Okay. I've bought some comic books since starting this,
Yep.
but I was not a comic collector before I started doing this with my dad. But there was one book in mind that I really wanted because I really like Doctor Doom, which I've learned from doing this. Didn't care about Doctor Doom before,
Right.
but now I do. And so when we went to Emerald City, there was a book I was looking for, and I got it.
So you started thinking about this book a few weeks back.
I've been looking at it on eBay for a while because there's not a lot of them on eBay in the grade that I would want, but there was one on there that I was watching for a while, and this one isn't that grade, but it's a good enough grade for me.
Let's show the people.
Well, first I want to just give a shout out to Comic Shell because they sent us some of their new design. Comic Shell, it's got a little handle now and it's got more padding.
Yeah.
So we carried these around Emerald City Comic Con, which was nice.
We put books in them.
We did.
Yeah.
I put my book in it. It's in it right now. We have a discount code if you want to use it. It's down below. But here it is.
What can I tell you? My kid's got good taste.
It's like a 5, 5,
Well, tell
6,
them what it
5.
is.
It's Marvel Superheroes 20, Doctor Doom storyline with the iconic cover. And it's like a 6.0, which I'm happy with.
Yep.
I love it.
I think it presents well. It's a great cover. It's got no wear on it. It looks good.
And I love it.
It's funny. The week before, I picked up a collection, and it had a great run of Hero for Hire. I also picked up a Doom cover, right? That I'm going through this, and they're for sale. I'll sell them at some point in the near future. And I get to this cover, and I've had this run before, but I didn't notice the cover, probably because the run wasn't as high grade.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at these, and these are all in grade. This is probably a near mint. So I'm looking at this, I'm like, this looks fantastic. So I look it up. When I saw the key significance of this book, I knew I was going to keep it. So anyway, so this is the book, Hero for Hire, number 9. First of all, sick cover. I want to read it to you real quick because it does say showdown with Dr. Doom, and Dr. Doom say, none may invade my kingdom. Here it is. I who have the power of life and death. What did Dr. Doom do to make Luke Cage so mad? What's going on here, Rachel?
So the key significance of this book is classic story where Luke Cage storms Dr. Doom's castle to collect $200 that he is owed for tracking down some missing robots.
A must-own key. All right, picked up some other books. All of these are great. This is Batman 220, classic action cover by Neil Adams. It's in grade. I mean, it's a very nice book. These I was considering grading, but I haven't got a book graded in so long. But they're at that grade. I don't know if I want to sell them raw or not.
What number is that one?
I'm sorry, I didn't say. This is Detective number 403.
This one's Detective 412.
Another great Neil Adams cover. So these above 8.5, once you get to 9092, they're really nice to have. Kind of hard to find.
Detective 425.
In the raw, this is a Bernie Wrightson cover. Great cover. Pick these up, and I'll check them out and see what they are. People have been asking me like, hey, Dave, we'd like to see what you're like collecting and what's going on. I keep telling them, you're going to be bored. So I've been putting some things away as I buy collections. Here's a stack. Here, Rachel.
Here's a stack of them.
A small stack. I won't bore you guys too much. But this is the kind of stuff I've been putting aside that is of a grade that is unusual. It's just when I see these and they're in grade, I know how hard it is to find. And before you completely say, what is this crap? Just take a peek.
This first one is Dagger the Invincible #6 by Gold Key.
Yeah, so when I see these in near mint, which is usually like as high as I see them, I just put them away. I'm not going to, what am I going to do, sell it for $5 or something?
This one's #7.
Yeah, so I've found, and these aren't all of them that I found. I just grabbed the ones that were the easiest for me to grab
Or
before
just
we
in
shot
your,
this video.
in your area. Here's Star Trek #13. All these are Gold Key. This one's Star Trek #15.
Yeah,
It's hard to see.
really nice book, super vibrant.
Star Trek #16. Magnus Robot Fighter.
Early, it's a 15 center. I forget what number that is. It needs a press. That's what a lot of these just need a press. They were like in bags, no boards. They're just so clean and nice. I really get excited when I find these.
This is Ripley's Believe It or Not. I love this one with the elephant.
Yeah, I've had this before, and it was
It's #29.
sold to me as a high grade copy, and it wasn't. Where I picked this up as a low grade copy, and it's much higher than the high grade copy that I bought.
This is Amazing Adventures 24.
This is a book I've had for quite a while, but I have a lot of these in either 9.4 or 9.6, just pristine. I hold these. I consider them in my personal collection. At some point, I'll probably sell them, but it has to be to somebody that actually likes them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the next couple. They have to actually really want these books. And I'm not going to sell them for $10 or something like these.
Here's Khazar 14.
Because they're all in 9.4 or 9.6. They're all from the Monterey collection. They're just pristine. And a couple of you geeks out there know exactly what I'm talking about. These are really nice.
This one's #6.
You're just not going to find, these 20-25 centers in this grade out there in a box. I've had some of these for years. Some of these I've just picked up. Go ahead and show that. I talked about this book and showed a picture off the internet. I didn't show you guys my copy of it. And I saw this in the stack I was looking at. So I wouldn't sell that for anything. I like it too much. And it's funny. How many of you own this book and you probably hate it or don't care, or you might love it? I don't know. But what's really nice is that I do own it. And every now and then I get to look at it because I think it's great. I have the whole set, by the way, and they're all great. Real quick before we get started, I just wanted to show this book.
Before we get started.
Well, we're not started yet, are we? I want to show this book right here. It's in Mylar. This is the kind of stuff. This is a near mint. It's like $32 or whatever. So this is a 9.8. The way it's bagged and boarded, we actually have a board in between in the very middle where the staples are. Plus, it's in a bag in the board. And then it's in another bag in the board that's a full back. So this is the way that we bag and board 9.8s when we put them away. If you ever wonder, like, how would you bag and board something? And people have asked us this. This is pretty bulletproof. We can put this away. We're not worried about it bending in a box. It's very firm. If we dropped it, it's got a long ways to go before that board bends. The board's not going to bend. It's got 3 boards involved in it.
Yeah, and it's a 4 milliliter Mylar too, so it's really thick plastic.
Yeah, so it's kind of expensive to do comics like this, but it's one of those things that if you do have a raw near mint, you can protect it without getting it slabbed. And it's not as expensive. You can do it yourself. We just wanted to show how we do that. For a moment today, we're going to talk a little bit about particular type of comic, more of a manufactured collectible, which are heavily collected. So we're talking about comic books that are 1 in 50s, 1 in 100s, 1 in 500s that are meant to be created rare. So there are a lot more people that might want one than there are available. So it's an interesting way to collect. Comic books started with Action #1, really, when Superman came out, introduced in Action 1, and there was 200,000 printed in 1938. So it sold out, and they knew they had something. So over the next few issues, it went up to 1 million copies. Everyone knew who Superman was. Later on, Detective 27 would have Batman. Superman 1 would come out. All of them were getting printed 1 million a month. Well, today, if you wanted a Detective 27, I think there's 75 copies known to exist. If you wanted Action #1, I think there's 100 copies known to exist. They're rare. I mean, rare. Now let's talk about some of the books out today. If you have a 1 in 1,000 or a 1 in 500, they're hard to get. I mean, you'd be lucky if your comic book store even had one. And if it did, they might have sold it to somebody, or the guy or girl who runs a store might have decided to keep it, or they sold it on the internet. And now you're hunting around the internet, and there might be some for sale, but they're super expensive. They're rare, let's call them. Attainable, but rare, right? So that's a little bit different. The thing about them is what makes people want them. Well, they're cool. I mean, they are. Action number one's cool. I want one. You know,
Who doesn't? Who doesn't want one of those?
I mean, I'd like to take one of those. I think Detective 27's cooler. I think the cover is just wicked. You know, I'd like two of those. Thank you very much. When comic books started, people have always speculated, even back when like all the number ones came out. I think it was 1968 when they kind of rebooted Iron Man into a new series. So it was Iron Man number one came out, Submariner number one came out, and Marvel really kind of started over. People were buying multiple issues of those. And I remember growing up thinking that those particular books weren't as important as earlier versions of Iron Man, right? Or earlier issues, like those were the original ones, and then they kind of restarted. Well, that had nothing on what they did later on in the late 80s and 90s. So when Man of Steel came out, they had more than one cover. So people did buy more than one cover, and that was popular.
The first variant of its kind.
It is.
Quote unquote.
And it was popular. I mean, I remember having multiple covers back then, and that run was popular. And DC was more popular back then. Other publications also followed suit. And as time went on and we kind of rolled into the 90s, things went crazy. I'll just flash forward to the big ones. So when X-Men came out, X-Men actually, and I'm not going in order, but X-Men sold over 8 million copies. They had the deluxe cover, and then they had each of the X-Men characters had a cover featuring them. They were gatefold covers. X-Force came out, and they each had a bagged cover. Each cover in the bag had a trading card.
Gotta catch them all.
Gotta get them all.
Just like Pokemon.
When Spider-Man came out, McFarlane's Spider-Man, they all had a different color. And then, you know, there's also newsstand and there's direct. And so there's a lot of other nuance involved in that. The Death of Superman, when that came out, there was more than one version of that. So there's all of these different covers and versions. And that was really part of the problem, is that a lot of people would buy a lot for later. And that buy a lot for later, or buy comics because later they're going to be worth something, had a lot of people that sunk a lot of money into comics, with the publishers making a lot of money because they were selling a lot of comics, and comic book stores making large commitments by buying all those comics. And a lot of people got stuck with comics, and there was a lot of sour grapes. A lot of sour grapes from people who bought those comics and didn't have any place to sell them after a period of time when they decided that, hey, nobody wants these anymore. It wasn't like now where they had the internet and people were looking at prices, but there were some publications out there that every month they would come out with comic values, and it just wasn't looking good for those things, and it wasn't like people were dying to get them. Different books were popular back then, different runs were popular back then than are now, and a lot of the things that were very popular back then, there's no interest in them now, you know. So
the ones we listed off, those are all pretty popular still.
Superman certainly isn't.
Oh yeah, you're right.
A lot of the
Man of Steel isn't as popular.
I take that back. I would say Superman still sells, and Superman's still in pop culture. They're still making Superman movies. To say he's not popular is not fair. It's just been spread out a lot, you know, when it comes to superheroes and things like Star Wars and other things that kind of bleed into it. So it's not as isolated. When the first Superman movie came out, and everyone went nuts. Mm-hmm. I mean, went nuts for it because there wasn't a lot of competition back then. So if you look at now and the comic book market today,
talk about competition.
Well, a lot of people jump on board. So let's talk about the Spider-Man number one with Eminem, for instance. And a lot of people were asking me like what I thought about it, and I really didn't have anything to comment. I can tell you that I wasn't a fan of spending a lot of money on that book. I'm a fan of Eminem. I thought the cover was cool. I liked the concept. Would have bought it for $5. I would have bought that. I mean, as a variant, I wouldn't have spent a lot of money on it, just because I have really spent a lot of money on comic books in my life that I never recovered. Believe me, hold my beer on that topic. Rachel can contest. She's seen me spend money and lose 50%, 60%, 70%. but she hasn't seen a fraction of it. So,
Well, and it was also 2020, so that shouldn't even.
but that's part of it. That you saw a piece. There was another piece that happened in the 90s.
Oh yeah, because I heard about that too.
Right. So you saw a piece of it, so you understand. I mean, once you experience it, and I really think becoming a comic reseller has helped me recalibrate my purpose. And my brother really helped me recalibrate my purpose because he helped me develop one. What do you collect for? What are your goals? I needed a North Star a bit to really figure out, like, well, what would you like to see at the end? It was really about some kind of like comic rush for a period of time, but it's not like that anymore. And I get as much enjoyment out of comics as I ever have, not 1 ounce less. I'm into it no different than I used to be. It's just I have a different purpose as someone who sells comics.
Well, with this one, I could see if there's someone who, number one, is a huge Eminem fan. Number two is a huge Spider-Man fan. Number three is a huge hip-hop variant cover fan. Like, there's a lot of those people that exist in the comic collecting.
It's a convergence of different reasons why someone would buy this. I get it.
And it's limited to 5,000, which is another aspect of, like, gee, are you a rare comic collector?
Yep.
So I can see the allure.
There's all kinds of allure in comics outside of variants. I mean, The Last of Us, really came to awareness to me after the show came out, and I wanted a copy of that. Even thought about springing for the money of what it was.
Up so much.
Just convinced myself to wait, even if I had to wait 2 years. I want that.
Will, because season 2.
I'll wait. I'll wait. That's what's changed.
You'll wait now.
I'll wait.
The FOMO's not going to get
somebody's going to get bored of that comic book, and people aren't going to care about it as much. Then I'll get it. And that's not a variant. I'm digressing. I'm just saying that there's still comic books like, I want to own that. I love that show. I like what they did, and the comic book looks cool. Fine. But we want to talk about a couple of books that really have blown up, and just talk about the fact that that philosophy of waiting till later, or we think something's going to happen with this, has been really dangerous for me.
Like buying it and then thinking something will come later.
I have not had good luck with that. Just saying. I have bought a couple of variants, and let's just go right to the one that I bought and I lost 50% on.
So it's Silver Surfer Black #2.
Yeah.
By Giuseppe Camuncoli.
Yeah, so when I saw that cover, I just thought it's one of the best covers I have ever seen of Venomized anything. I mean, you're mixing Venom and Silver Surfer in a way that blew my mind. So I got the book in. It looked beautiful. I paid $700 for it. I was watching the market, and the next 6 months it went down to $500. And I'm watching the market, and it kept kind of creeping down. Not that there was a lot of sales, but it was going the wrong direction. And I'm like, do I hop out of this? I mean, I really don't want to see it go down to $200. I love the book, but is it worth me kind of throwing $500-600 away? So I put it in the auction. I think it went for $400 or $350. It wasn't worth that. I didn't get $350 worth of entertainment out of it. I like the book. I mean, I'd love to own that book again. I think it's just as good as it gets in terms of cool. I mean,
you also didn't pay the highest that someone paid.
There's a version of that. There's another version of that. I think it's a sketch variant. Mm-hmm. That's a black and white. That's even more than that. And that person paid way too much money. How much is that?
On cover price, it says raw $7,000. I don't know if that's real. A 9.8 sold. Here, let me look at this side. Yeah, apparently a raw sold for $7,000. That might be wrong.
No,
$5,000.
Yeah,
$5,000 for a 9.8.
So there was a $5,000 raw. I think there was like one.
It might be signed or something.
No, there was something.
Deep dive in.
There you go. So we have this manufactured rarity. It's the bragging rights to, you don't have one of these. I get that. I wouldn't say there's a tremendous amount. Well, let me say a different way.
Oh, there's only 25 of those. That's
all right,
why.
25. I would say there's definitely ego wrapped up in my collecting. We all kind of have a different version of it. My version doesn't go to that. I like to have old books that no one has. Not as much new books. I don't know why. Maybe because there's some representation of a new book being in perfect condition on the internet, where there may not even be a picture of an old book.
Yeah, I've never even seen one of those before.
Like that book's never been photographed, like some creature in the wild that has only been whispered about, So I don't know. I guess we all have our own trip on like how we want to do it, and that's fine. But anyway, that's been my lesson, is to be super careful on ratio variants. And I learned it recently because in 2021, I literally have a short box that has over 100 of them.
A variance.
And most of them were misses. As a matter of fact, the person that owned the shop took me aside and said, you shouldn't buy all these. And she was giving me a deal, but she said, how about if I just pick the ones that you buy? And she started to kind of filter out and get to the better covers, because I didn't realize that they weren't all going to like hold their value.
Right. That was before we knew what was happening.
So that was just a few years ago. I was pretty naive to the fact that throwing money at comic books wasn't always wise. If you're just coming back to comic books in this year, man, you're lucky, because if you'd have came back then, I think you would have been lulled into a false sense of growth in comics that wasn't realistic, or at least I was. And at least my brother was trying to tamp that down. He did, Anyway, there's some other books that have come along the way that are worth a tremendous amount of money because of their rarity. Not many of them were printed, and the demand is incredibly high still, but they're as volatile as anything you've ever seen. They could literally sell for double or half at any given time. Why don't you name a couple of those?
This is Amazing Spider-Man 667. This is the Gabriel Del Auto variant. It's a 1 in 100 variant.
Yeah.
The last 9/8 sold slabbed for $29,750.
When was that?
In March of 2023.
Yeah.
So it was a year ago. But just recently, a 9/4 slabbed sold for $86.50. So $8,650.
So, and there's a good exercise there. So does it double at every grade? Typically, it could go up 10x from that. I mean, it really depends on a lot of factors. Sometimes I've seen books go up just a small amount from one grade to another, all the way up to 6, 7x. It depends. It really depends on the market. This book, I really don't, understand the significance. Do I think that over time it's going to hold a value? I don't know.
So the big difference between like other ones on eBay and the one that sold for $30,000 is it has the trade dress on it, which is interesting because like in collectibles, at least that we've gotten in collections and stuff, the ones that are worth more are the variants that have no trade dress on them. So the 1 in 100 variant has the trade dress on it. That's the one that's worth the most money, or that has sold for the most money because of how rare it is. There are none on eBay.
Yeah, so the cognoscente has said, and that's why we do. Who makes these choices? And I'll tell you, it does make sense most of the time on these variants. And it's like, let's show some that make sense. So you can go through 1,000 covers, and this boils down really to taste. So if you saw a variant that had 40 covers, and you might say, that's cool, that's cool, that's cool. Well, why would one blow up out of 500 books that come out with 15 different covers? All of a sudden, one blows up. Let's show a cool variant, one that is cool. Here's kind of my taste. Well, like I'll look at one and I'll say, I think that's cool. I'd own that. Now, would I pay what it's going for? Maybe not.
This one's Amazing Spider-Man 678. The Joe Quinones cover. It's a 1 in 50 variant, and it's a Venom cover. The last 9/8 of this sold in October of 2023 for $3,500. Most recently, a 9/4 sold for $1,800.
Yeah. So what year did this come out?
This came out in 2012.
So it's got legs. I mean,
it's been around for a minute.
Yep. And so 11 years this book's been out, and it's really the art. First time I ever saw this cover, I said, yes, I'll take one. And first time I saw the price, I said, no, I'll pass. just because if I ever picked one up in a collection or whatever, I definitely love this cover. It's just, it's really a lot more than just the cover. It's also the way it was laid out. I just think it's one of those covers with the bright background, her in the door, she's smiling. It's like, yeah, you nailed that. I know when he walked away from that piece of art, he said, I perfected that particular drawing. So
there are a lot of these on eBay listed.
And it's still, it's still popular. So it's when variants look like that I really get it. And there's a bunch of them out there, and you'll see them. They'll pop up, and it really turns into, is that worth $50? Is that worth $100? Because you don't really think about selling it. Sometimes you want to keep it. When it turns into an investment, I think that's when, for me, I don't do that anymore personally. I don't. I'd have to pick it up in a collection.
Yeah.
And Rachel and I really tend to, when we pick those up in collections, we always price them under market.
So we're not trying to play
Sometimes
any games.
vastly, you know. I'm not like trying to press them up and send them to CGC. We just had like 1,000 of them. We tried to sell every one of them under market. We didn't even grade them. I mean, we would have 2 covers. We just bundle it, sell them under market. We just moved them out.
Here's another one. This is Invincible Iron Man 512. This is the Strowman variant. It's a 1 in 50. It's really cool, actually. Really cool cover.
It's very cool.
This came out in 2012 as well. 2012 must have been a poppin' year for comics. Now, the last 98 of this hasn't sold since 2022, but there's some listed on eBay right now that are listed for pretty high amounts.
I would say 2022 is 10 years on, and it's still got money. So that's a very successful book, if you ask me.
Yeah, like it's held its value at least.
And that's kind of like the last point. A lot of times, what you'll see, and just kind of watch this. You'll see a book bump up, and within 30 days, it stops getting the money. And what I look for is, does a variant get ratio? Like, here comes a 1 in 25. Is it getting $25? That is the sign of a successful variant.
Do you want to just really quickly explain what a 1 in 25 means?
Yeah, ratio is like for that comic shop. You know, when they order the book, they have to order 25 copies of the regular cover in order to get this variant, which often is a different artist that they hire and say, here's the theme of the comic. We would like you to come up with a different cover. And they can just completely go off and do their own version of how they visualize a cover. It's a 1 in 50. People are paying $50 for it, right? So the true sign of success is 90 days from now, does it still get $50, right? Hey, that thing has it has little legs, you know?
Little legs.
What about a year from now? Does it still get $50? And I'm talking raw, right? Now, one thing about raw, near mint is not near mint. So when a book comes into a comic shop, you want it to be near mint. The problem with 1 in 500s, 1 in 1000s is you assume that the comic shop is getting a pristine copy in a hermetically sealed envelope with steel corners that the book is going to be in perfect condition. They're not always in perfect condition.
Mm-mm.
And believe me, shop owners want to pull their hair out when they're not. So what do? They want to send it back, right? And get a perfect condition one now. And that's not always available.
It may not be available.
It's not always available.
1 in 100.
So if it has some kind of ding on it, and then they have to bag and board it and send it. And most time it works out. Doesn't always. And if they got like a 1 in 25 and they got 4 of them or 5 of them, the chance of one getting dinged up along the way is possible. I've gotten some of those, right, that had the smallest of imperfection that would take it into a 9.6. That happens. They're not worth the same money whenever they start to go up when they're not a 9.8, which is a near mint. So that's a factor. They're not always perfect, you know, and people expect them to be. Anyway, that's just some information about these manufactured collectibles. They come out. There's very few of them. They're already rare the day that they were created. They may be valuable. They may not. They're a little bit different than an actual collectible that is vintage, that was well loved along the way, that was thrown on somebody's porch in a piece of twine, thrown onto a wooden pedestal, red. Somebody threw it into a box for 60 years, somehow got to you, is still in near mint condition. Like this book is 60 years old, 58 years old, and it looks to be in near mint condition. That's why I'm not saying it's better. It's just a different type of collectible. There's a new book that came out today that's going to be worth more than this by tonight. You know?
Yeah, because I'm sure a lot of people are like, Star Trek. A lot of people don't care about Star Trek, but then a lot of people do.
I'll promise you that there are some people that are watching this that really like that. It's just
it doesn't excite everybody.
No, it's just a different era.
Yeah,
it's a different type of collector.
Yes,
where there's a much wider group of people that want to see what's going on in new books, and they're just as excited. And believe me, there's tons of people that love what's going on in new books, and I don't hate it. I mean, I definitely like what's going on in new books. I'm really leery about spending a lot of money on a book.
Yeah.
That's the only thing
recently.
I'm leery on. I don't know if I'm going to spend hundreds of dollars on a book that came out recently.
Right.
but I would chase down a pool box. Like if I had a pool box, and I did. I had a pool box. I got thousands of books from a pool box in the last couple of years, but I stopped doing that. I would do it different now as a seller.
Yeah.
Right? But I would watch what's coming out in the next few months if I was doing that again. We've talked about it. We don't have enough time to shoot videos. I don't know how I'm going to track on all that.
On
Do
modern
you guys
books.
know how much work it is for someone who sells comic books to get 3 months ahead of time? We couldn't shoot a video for 3 weeks. Let's wrap it up, right?
Let's wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for watching. Sorry we haven't posted a video in a couple weeks. We appreciate you coming back and watching us.
People have let us know that they're upset about that.
I know, I'm sorry. It's not from lack of trying. Promise you that. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and you will get notified whenever we post videos again. And
we didn't say half of what I wanted to say either.
We didn't?
I don't think so.
I think we did.
Okay, we said everything.
I think we did. Oh, you didn't say that, but whatever. Anyway.
They're always going to wonder what that is.
Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, where we do claim sales every Monday and Friday. And we'll see you guys next time.
See you next time.
Bye.